It's time for the Elite 8 in the Elestriad. Casters have clashed it out across weeks of grueling competition, with elements colliding. This week, the newest element, Lunar, arrives to the scene with the powerful Drakking behind his expert caster, CalebDOTexe. Caleb eliminated Shady Penguin and 1S plays this season and is throwing down against Espira, a seasoned water caster who had a stunning victory over Peeps YGO last week. Only one caster will be immortalized forever as a divine god in Elestrals TCG. Moonrise pre-orders are officially open, and you do not want to miss out on our best set yet. Control the power of the lunar phases with Voldusk and Volclipse. Orders over 50 USD get the incredible Like a Void promo while supplies last. Head to shopelestrals.com and pre-order today. Caleb is one of 10 casters in the world who have a stellar full art 1 of 10 Drakking. Let's see what his game plan's gonna be.
What is up, my Drak Kings, Drak Queens, and squids of every Nexus form? We are here in top 8 to play against the water caster Espira, and we had to bring it back. We had to show up with Drakking yet again because there aren't really other options for us. Ferogeist really is not an option in the current state of Daybreak. Once Moonrise comes out, Ferogeist is way more viable as a strategy, but it just isn't likely to work for us here in Elestriad Season 3. The other option is Postamoose, but just the same issues that arise with Ferogeist show up for Postamoose. So we are back, we're running Drakking, my boy, my favorite pineapple. And let's run through this deck profile real quick so we can get right into that top 8 goodness. We're running the double Stellar Drakking, the double Drakid, the double Gloombat, the double Tadpuff. These are all of our ways to our boy Drakking. That's the goal, is either quick ascend into it with a guy we can special cast from hand, or our rock and hard place to get into the Drakking. We then have the other piece that goes with the rock and hard place, the Eddy and the triple Eddy and the single Kuribus, and of course the triple rock and hard place to go along with it. We'll toss out Artemis is in the deck as well because we have to play it. It is back row bait. If he plays rock and hard place, I will absolutely be setting Artemis as bait. We're also running double Dratagwa, something that we kind of have to be playing because he's on water. He'll be playing Sluggle and or Dratagwa. We need to be able to try and keep up with the healing. And so we have to be playing at least 2. I'd love to be playing 3. I'd love to be playing more waters in this deck because they will just on average perform better than the lunars we're playing will. But because of the deck list restrictions, this is what we are on. And speaking of deck list restrictions, the best lunar that we can play is Spectaris. The other option is Nabi. Nabi maybe could be better, but I think that Spectaris will come up more if Espira is playing Foamy. So we're on that. And then what I hope will be the all-star of this game is GALAXEA. GALAXEA absolutely hard clears the beast that is Drakking because GALAXEA reads turn Drakking into a 4/7. And so GALAXEA just hits over Drakking and makes it a non-problem. The idea is that I'm assuming Espira will not be main decking GALAXEA in his own Drakking list because it hurts his own deck. So if I'm able to play it, catch him off guard, and out his Drakking if he plays it with GALAXEA and then ascend over it into my own or something like that, I'm able to generate advantage and then stick my own Drakking in response. And GALAXEA loses to the same things it always does. It loses to Gorgon's Gaze, it loses to Dense Fog. But outside of that, it is likely that Drakking isn't sticking until a very simplified game state for either of us where GALAXEA connects for free pretty much. So GALAXEA is going to absolutely hard clear this matchup. If you're not playing GALAXEA and you're expecting to play against it in casuals or premier events, run GALAXEA in your side deck. This card hard clears Drakking. It's horrible that I shouldn't be saying that. If my opponents for top 4, if I make it, are listening to this, no, you didn't hear that. We're running the single Resting on Your Laurels, running triple Ambro, we're running the triple Nectar of the Gods, pop a guy, heal, and draw. They're all good effects. I can't wait for Elestrals to get the equivalent of triple Tactics Thrust with those 3 effects on it. And then for our counter rune suite, it is a standard triple shield Gorgons. This deck is meant to kind of be like a control deck. I want to be keeping Espira off of his Elestrals. I don't want him to ascend into Drakking. I think the only way that I'd be okay with him ascending into it is by quick ascension through rock and a hard place. Otherwise, I don't want him sticking a guy long enough to ascend over it. So we want to ideally be drawing all this back row, interrupting him, using our guys to keep him off guys, and control the board state. For our spirits, we're running 11 lunar as is mandatory, and we're running 9 water. Pretty simple. If I could run more water, I would run less lunar. But once Moonrise comes out, we're running all lunar, baby. We've got double Smotuga and a single Necrof in the side deck. Smoltuga is incredible if I think he is on Galaxy, if I see it in his main deck, or I think he's siding into it because I'm playing it. Smoltuga is a way to single-handedly deal with a Galaxy. If he's got Galaxy on board, I play Smoltuga, I search Necrof, I thin my deck by 1 card, and I crash the Smoltuga. He has nothing to do about it. Our other cards are Triple Sluggle, Double Nobby. Sluggle, I brought up, same thing as Rotagwa. We want to be able to heal if we think he's on a very heal-focused deck. And Nobby might be better than Spectaris. It's probably not. I just really couldn't find other cards to fit into the Style deck, frankly. Triple Cryoblast, I don't really know what the targets are in this deck. It's like exactly Kuribus and Eddie, assuming he's on standard water stuff. But it could help to get over a defensive like Astrabbit or Jatagua that I can't hit over like an Eddie. So it could come up. We're running double Dense Fog because it clears a bunch of stuff in water, and then double Flare Mine. And so that's the deck that we're taking to play against Espira. Hopefully we're able to take it out. The reality is I'm not super hopeful. I think that Water Drakking is the better way to play the deck, but it is unlikely actually that he'll be playing the version of Water Drakking that I think will actually be able to perform well. And so with that, we're taking on my prior Divine. We're taking on Poseidon. We're taking on Aspira. I'm sorry, I know I repped Poseidon for Season 2, but I'm all about Artemis, baby. That's what I'm all about now. And so we're going to run it. We're going to take it down. Good luck to my opponent. I'll see you all in top 4.
Drakking is a tremendous threat, being able to steal opposing Elestrals, and it can turbo itself out so fast. Caleb's choice of bringing Galaxy to counter an opposing Drakking is very epic, and it may be a key Elestral in this clash. Let's hear from Espira, the Watercaster, whether he's rocking with Drakking or going a different route.
We have broken through into the Elestriad top 8, which is incredibly exciting. Honestly, given my Season 2 performance, kind of surprised that we made it all the way through here, even up till now. That said, we're moving on to playing against LUNAR, which does have limited options, but still very powerful cards. With that said, I did have the chance to change up the game plan a good fair bit. This time actually accommodating for a sideboard that tries to take advantage of what our opponent is doing, and making modifications to the main board in concession to the things that our opponents will probably be bringing. Caleb has played the Drakking deck, and then we've seen Wirtz also play the Beatdown deck. So the balance between those two, see where we can take some advantages. With that said, the start of the deck looks very similar. Of course, we've got our Poseidon, but this time we did drop the Atlantis out of the main board and over to the sideboard, just because of the way that I was seeing some of the combat math play out versus our cards and their cards. Then from there we go into our Elestrals. Of course, we've got our 3 Eddie, fantastic boy right there, able to kind of pressure our opponents. And this time around, however, we are not playing the Kuribus. We are still on 2 Drataguas and only 2 Moose Stations. Bit of a change over from our previous week. The addition, though, being Foamy. Something that I didn't really realize until later on in the rounds was kind of like Foamy's synergy with being able to get out an Eddie and kind of turning Foamy into this like pseudo battle trick, or just something that if we're going one-on-one with our opponent, it's something that can chill and give us some benefits. We do need to be careful with this, however, because if our opponent happens to Drakking and take control of Foamy, if Caleb is still on his water-oriented build, we'll still be able to take advantage of the Foamy because it can enchant with water. So just something to keep in mind there. We do have 1 Galaxy here. The option to be able to go into Galaxy from Foamy is kind of nice and toolboxy. I do still feel iffy with Galaxy given how much suppression options are available for our opponent, but I do think the opportunity to flip stats is pretty important when Drakking is a 4 defense statted creature. And on top of that, we don't have a ton of ways to be able to flip it into defense. Tsunami obviously doesn't work on the card if it's properly enchanted, so just having an out in the terms of this body to be able to do something against the Drakking if we don't have removal available will be a pretty big deal. And then of course we've got our 3 rabbits, and then moving on to our LUNAR stuff because we're still leaning on some of the LUNAR package. We've got a Paraspectaris now. This card has been incredibly annoying to have to deal with, and we've been lucky enough to be able to always find the removal for it. But I want to start applying that same kind of pressure over to our opponent and putting them in awkward positions versus this card. Then we've got a couple of Drakkets staying on there with our 1 Drakking. These are kind of our makeshift boom bats, and then a Drakking just because, hey, we're up against a LUNAR water deck most likely, and having the option to properly enchant into powerful things like another Expectaris or any of the water Elestrals that they may be playing, a Drataga or something like that is really nice. Of course, if we're going to be playing those, we're going to be playing our rocks and a hard place, just that additional removal, and then moving over to our Counter runes, we've got the tsunamis. We're only on 2 now because our opponent's probably playing a sizable water package. So the 3 I think isn't going to hit as often. We do have other options in terms of dealing with what our opponent is doing. We've got from there, of course, our 3 Gorgon's Gazes, and then our 3 poison-tipped arrows, as well as our 3 ambrosias. This time we've upped to 3 Nectar of the Gods. I just think it's super important to get those draws. I always feel super ahead when I be able to get those draws, and we do have that natural healing in Dratagua and being able to Nexus around it to kind of power through the cost earlier in the game. It has felt always super nice to be able to draw the cards, and so I'm going to take advantage of that as much as possible. Then we've got 1 Resting on Your Laurels, 2 Cryoblasts, and 1 Earthquake as our invoke removals. The Earthquake and Resting on Your Laurels, still going to stand by that. And then, of course, the Cryoblast, because there's a ton of stuff that we're looking to hit, whether that be a Drak kit that's stuck on board or a Specterus. There's just a lot of targets that we can kind of get through with this. With all that in mind, of course, we do have our spirits to go through. So we have 11 water, as is mandated by the rules of this tournament. We've now been able to bump up into 4 Alloons because we did drop the lava list. I just don't see this being a matchup where our opponent's going to have a ton of spirits over us, aside from the fact whenever they cast Drakking, and even then I'd probably want to cast more of a tech Elestral as opposed to just a 6-beater, which doesn't even beat over the Drakking. So that's kind of the mentality there. We've got our 2 Zaptors for our Rabbits, we've got our 2 Terratlas for the Earthquake, and then finally the 1 Flormine for our Cryoblast. Moving out of the spirits and into the side deck, like I said, this time we have a real sideboard strategy. Instead of just kind of doing whatever with the Zephyrog and realistically not bringing in too many cards, we're going to try and play around what our opponent's doing. As you can see, we did bring out the Shield of Achilles. They are now in the side. That's what we took out for the Cryoblasts. Got a pair of Pandora's Boxes if our opponent opts to go for a rock and a hard place. At the very least, we might be in a position to be able to prevent them from blowing us out going into a bigger body. Then we have Altar of Stars, and this really represents a shift in the way we want to go about things. I want additional ways to be able to flip cards like Drakking or Specterus or anything in defense position, depending on if they're on it. I have it in the side because it can be kind of middling depending on the deck our opponent is on, and we can always shift into something that takes better advantage of things like Altar of the Stars, especially if we bring in our additional Dratagua, and then of course we have the option of going into another Galaxy and Moose Station if we want to go more on the beats strategy. If we are going to go a bit more into the heal side, the Dratagua, the Altar of Stars, then we have the options for the Aphoros to kind of turbo out some heal plays. We've got an Atlantis in case we find out that the beats really do matter, and we will really appreciate the additional 1 stats. And then finally we have 2 Boombats as just additional removal. Again, super spooked with Drakking. We don't have a ton of outs that aren't just straight removal. Our combat ability to deal with them is a little bit stifled because of the fact that there's some water there, and with that we do have the additional Zaptor to be able to kind of facilitate our spirit math in terms of trying to get these Boombats off while still being mindful of our Rabbits. With that said, the deck very much does a lot of what it does similarly in previous matchups. I'm just more cognizant of having more options in the match when things don't exactly go my way and I see every removal rune that I possibly want. So with that, let's see if we can cinch our way into the top 4.
It looks like we've got somewhat of a mirror match here with Espira also bringing Drakking, but a more water-oriented build. This clash may come down to whoever can land their Drakking first, and I'm here for that. Mistation is a key Elestral to look out for on Aspira's end, as I think it could be a great way to keep Caleb at bay. It's time to dive into this clash. CalebDOTexe throwing down against Espira, Lunar versus Water. A lot of overlap between these 2 different elements because of Rock in a Hard Place and Drakking, and Caleb's going to expend to draw, kick off this turn with 2 face-down runes, and Aspira will fire down an Astravid of his own, going with attack position this time, looking to get some chip damage off on Caleb. The nice thing here is that you're going to be able to look at the top 3 cards of your deck and add one of those cards to your hand, and most certainly Aspira has some sort of back row, like a Shield of Achilles, to deal with whatever might be trying to attack the Astravid. So he will get that 1 Spirit of chip damage. It is a risky play though, right? You're getting that 1 Spirit of damage, but now you're gonna have to defend your Astravid. It's good in a world where you know your opponent's probably running 3 Eddy because they're not gonna play that, but we are gonna see the Specterus here. Specterus, a powerful Lunar Elestral on Caleb's end that can suppress opposing Elestrals in combat. Let's see if Espira has an answer here, or if he's gonna let his Rabbit go down. Most certainly we're gonna see, is it a Tsunami? It is a Tsunami. Very interesting to see a Tsunami in this clash, especially this early on. It works out very well. Espira his Tsunami was opt to be a defensive play, he could always turn his own Rabbit to defense. But really what he wants to do here is shift that Spectrus as well. That Stellar Nectar of the Gods from Espira, big play there. Getting 2 additional cards. Water can afford to play these types of cards like Nectar because they have Dratagua, which can heal them so well. Here comes an Eddy onto the field. Eddy can shift this position of an Elestral, but not going to want to utilize the effect this turn, as you prefer to keep that Spectrus in defense position. With no threat of Altar of Stars, Aspira's in a decent position here to take out this Spectrus. Are we going to see a Rock and a Hard Place Ascension already? We are! Rock and a Hard Place is an uncounterable card, which means that Caleb actually can't stop this, and he has to choose to lose his counter rune or his Spectrus, and he's going to lose an Artemis face down. If you're Caleb, you actually, I would say you did pretty well there. Espira has the effect of Eddy, but it's possible he's not looking to resolve it, and that does seem to be the case there. So he's going to play another rune. Is it another Rock and a Hard Place? It is! He's going after the back row here, but he's not taking advantage of Eddy's Turbo Ascension into Kerberos, which may actually prove to be big here because he's taking a lot of spirits. Caleb does not want to lose his back row. It seems he wants to stay comfortable there. And Aspira is going to be able to attack directly now and get a few spirits of chip damage, but he's got a bit of a spirit differential here that he's going to be looking to make up. I'm curious what face down runes Caleb has. He will take the spirit damage there. Astravid and Eddy charging forward, taking a water and a lunar spirit from Caleb, who's now looking to mount an offensive. It's going to be the Galaxy. Really great answer here. Galaxy immune to Tsunami. We saw on that first turn from Aspira. Able to swap the stats of Eddy as well to make it very, very weak. Galaxy most certainly attacking into the Astravid. We're going to see 2 water spirits and a Gorgon's Gaze. Oh no! Galaxy gets its stats swapped back and crashes into Astravid, as both of them will have 2 attack with the suppression going on to Galaxy in the battle step. So very nice play there from Espira. We'll see if he's able to get a Dratagua out here to start getting some more health. Instead, no. Is this a third Rock and a Hard Place? No, it's a Nectar of the Gods, his second Nectar of the Gods of this clash. Able to draw more cards, but he is looking for a Dratagua here. Does he have it? No, he's going to go Mustation this time. I do think this is a card to watch out for in this one, but Espira is very low on spirits here. And Caleb, I'm not sure he's sweating just yet. I think Caleb feels pretty comfortable here if he's able to get an Elestral to stick, because Espira is getting to the point now where he really only has 1 or 2 more counter rune activations left in him, because he's going to need to be able to keep his Elestrals around. Dratagua from Caleb, though, that's actually really big, because it's going to give him that regeneration that we're kind of highlighting on George's end, but it's going to give it to Caleb to further that gap. And we're going to see, is this a poison-tipped arrow? It is! That's huge from Espira. A massive poison-tipped arrow, which will take out that Dratagua in the end phase. Not a terrible exchange from Caleb because he's going to be so up on spirits here, but it does mean that Espira is going to be able to get a third Elestral to the field with virtually no contest, as Caleb's going to have an empty board on his side. So if Espira is able to find another Elestral, especially a Dratagua, this could be massive for him. Let's see it. A water spirit hits the field. It's a Galaxy. So Galaxy will make Mustation a 6 attacker, but Caleb responds with a PTA of his own. Espira really needed the Dratagua there, but that Galaxy going to be able to put on some pressure, and we're going to see this spirit differential get quite a bit tighter here, as Espira is going to deal 3 spirits of damage, and then the PTA in the end phase will activate to take out the Galaxy. So a pretty big swing there, but again, Espira down to just 3 spirits. Caleb still has just enough room to make a big push here, a turbo out of like a Drakking or something like that. You're going to have to see if he's able to execute that. He's got some room to go for a Nectar of the Gods. Bring him down to 6 spirits. This is a very close clash all of a sudden, as Caleb's looking for something here. Did he find an Ambrosia? It's going to be the Drakid. This might be his opening, and if Espira had a Kerberos, he could respond with his own Eddy. Let's see if Rock and a Hard Place hits the field here. No, he's going to use the effect of Drakking to swap some stats around. Wise choice. Does he have the Rock? He's going to go Ambrosia. Almost certain that he was sitting on an Ambrosia. He happened to be having it face down. Remember, he chose to get rid of his Spectrus earlier on the clash, and it's a double Ambrosia, so he really wanted to save those. Got quite a few spirits, and now Drakid going to be able to attack in and deal some big damage here. And we're gonna see the Gorgon's Gaze to stop it, bringing a spirit down to just one spirit. Caleb has no back row. This one is insanely close, ladies and gentlemen. If a spirit can find a Dratagua or an Ambrosia, he can do so much work here. Are we gonna see an Ascension? We are. Drakking hits the field from Espira with no back row on Caleb's end. Drakking is gonna be able to take out the Drakid, and Eddie is gonna be able to attack directly and leave Caleb down to just a handful of spirits left. This is massive, but Espira has no spirits left. So the question is, does Caleb have enough to make a push here? GALAXEA comes out. That's going to swap the Drakking stats. And GALAXEA beats Eddie too. And Espira has no spirits left. GALAXEA, the big brain, GALAXEA brain play by Caleb to bring 3 GALAXEA on his end to swap his opposing Drakkings. He's going to clear the Drakking right there and get it off the field. Espira only has an Eddie, and he is forced to scoop on this one. Caleb, with the strategy of bringing Drakking, actually runs into a Drakking instead. Let's check out game 2. All right, here we go. CalebDOTexe gonna go for that mulligan here, looking for a new hand. Wasn't feeling his first one. He's gonna be already down 2 spirits to start off this clash. We're gonna see Espira go for 2 water. Is it a Nectar? It is. Nectar of the Gods right away, allowing him to draw 2 cards. Massive, massive play there. At this point of the game, this is really when you want to see those Nogs, because it gives you an opportunity to get tremendous advantages. He got 2 of them. He does. That's the stellar one, man. You guys are going to find out how to get that one soon enough, and it is beautiful. Shout out to that one. I quite like that rune. We've got the Water Spear coming out here from Aspira into a Foamy into defense. I love what Foamy can do right now in the game. A lot of search targets from Dratagua to Mestation to even an Eddie, right? Like, you have the opportunity to go into an Eddie if you want to kind of end battle phase by swapping another Elestral. So, and with the limited removal options, Earthquake going down to 1, something like a Foamy can kind of stick around a little longer, or at the very least have a higher chance to get its effect off. If you're Caleb, you're searching for Spectrus here, and if you find it, you're in great shape, and he does find it. Spectrus hits the field right now, and it immediately threatens the effect of this Foamy. So, a great counterplay there from Caleb. We're going to see 2, or let's see here. Is it going to be a Tsunami? No, it's a PTA, Poison Tipped Arrow, that will drop the attack stat of Spectrus down to 2, which means that after it suppresses Foamy, it'll get to 3, but it won't be able to knock out the Foamy. So, great counterplay there from Aspira. The perfectly timed Poison Tipped Arrow. Very strategic and right on time, actually. Like I said, you couldn't ask for a more perfect situation, because he really wants that Foamy to stick, right? He's really going to want to be able to get that search, because that's going to enable an Ascension. That's going to enable him to be able to, you know, start to flood this field and get kind of the numbers advantage. Caleb's deck initially was really set out to go tall, whereas we've got Aspira's deck was really trying to go a little bit wider. We see a Poison Tipped Arrow here on the Mestation. That means that Aspira's not going to be able to deal any spirit damage with Mestation this turn, because his attack will be dropped to 0. And if he does not choose to expend, he won't be dealing any damage there. So a pretty good value exchange there from Caleb to get rid of Mestation and prevent it from really doing anything. I bet he wishes he had that for the Foamy, but clearing Mestation is solid. Caleb's going to draw for his turn as well, going into a Foamy into attack position. Let's see if he's able to find anything. It's going to be Spectrus again, his second one. He's going to force Espira to respond again. Will there be a Tsunami here to protect him? Both these casters deadlocked in at 11-11. Spectrus attacks, and Espira reaches for a Spirit Deck immediately. He's got an answer. Is it a Gorgon's Gaze this time, or a shield? It's a Gorgon's. Gorgon's Gaze going to suppress the Spectrus in the attack step to prevent it from attacking. Very, very nice. And we're going to see a Flurmine here. Is this a Cryoblast? It is. Cryoblast strikes down to the field and removes Spectrus. Espira has found every answer he's needed to allow his Foamy to stay around a little bit longer and potentially get that effect off. Here comes a Spectrus of his own. I really like Aspira's positioning. Here comes an attack. He's going to go for 2 spirits here, and he's going to land them. Caleb's going to be looking to make a big play here, because he's starting to face down a board state that's a little tough. The good news for him is there's no back row, and Caleb's just going to go a defensive approach here. This is great value. He's going to be able to grab his Necrof, which provides a lot of pressure here at this point in the clash. And he's got a 5 defensive wall that Aspira's going to have a hard time getting over if he's not able to find his Eddie right now. Or goes for an Ascension like we saw in that first game. It is going to be the Ascension. The Lunar Spirit comes down on top of Foamy, never getting to activate its effect. Aspira worked hard to keep that thing around, but here comes Drakking and the Poison Tipped Arrow. Ever the opportunist, the perfect timing from Caleb That's devastating because he's not going to be able to attack over the Smoltuga. And unfortunately, this is going to be a washed turn for Espira. His Drakking is blocked entirely by a little volcanic turtle, expending 2 there on that PTA, but well worth it from Caleb as it kept him in this clash. Drakking lands twice on Aspira's end, but not able to stick or deal enough. Here comes the rock in a hard place. Aspira forced to get rid of his counter or his Spectrus. A very difficult decision and a bold play by Caleb. What is George gonna do here? Tough decisions to make. He loses a Poseidon. Maybe it wasn't as hard as a choice as I thought it was gonna be. Ambrosia will heal up Caleb a couple extra spirits at this later point of the clash, bringing it close 6-5. But does he have an answer to get over? Oh, he does! The X out of 10 Stellar Drakking hits the field, and this one might just be over, ladies and gentlemen. Caleb called it in the pregame. He said these Drakkings are going to hit the field in a simplified board state, and that's where it's going to go down, and that's exactly what happens right here. Aspira is going to be throwing away a lot of spirits of damage after that, and Drakking looking incredibly powerful. Will Aspira have a way to come back in this one? Resting on your laurels, that is what makes Drakking so incredible. It is resting on your laurels counter. It is such a perfect counter to that because you're essentially casting out, you know, their thrall to protect you from the laurels. So the one of laurels ain't able to help George today. Gonna go for the expend to draw. What is he looking for? He needs something big. Let's see it. He's got a Lunar. It's an Ambrosia. That'll keep him in a little bit longer. That'll give him an opportunity to take a hit from the Drakking and try to establish a board state. He's probably looking for a Galaxy. Something like a Galaxy would actually be massive. Let's see what Caleb's got going on here. He has a chance to set a counter rune now if he draws into it, or pressure with an additional Elestral. It's going to be a Water Enchanted Necruff, which can deal damage and get around Tsunami. Both of these Elestrals are immune to Tsunami. And Caleb is going to put a big push on here with both of them attacking for 3 total spirits. Espira will be down to just 2 if he has no response here. And he's debating, but it seems as though he's gonna take those spirits of damage, be knocked down to just 2. And it's a 2-2 tie, but a giant Drakking is on the field. Espira signaling, and I think this one's gonna be over. It's an Astrabit, but that's not gonna do it. Kuribus, Shield of Achilles, rock in a hard place. Caleb is your winner here in our Elite 8, and he is going to our Final 4. Stay tuned for that. An incredible showing. 3 Drakkings hit the field. That's pretty darn epic if you ask me. We'll have to see what happens in our next clash. I'll see y'all then. Oh, and don't forget to pre-order Moonrise. Seriously, it's amazing.